Hello and welcome to this research seminar of the Hellenic Observatory here at the London School of Economics. My name is Kevin Featherstone and I'm the director of the Hellenic Observatory. Our seminar today focuses on e-government in Greece and its scope to make the state's regulation of the economy more efficient and productive. International surveys have long shown Greece performing poorly in terms of the regulatory burden, the ease of doing business, regulatory quality, government effectiveness, etc., etc. The indices of the World Bank in this respect are well known amongst academics and beyond. In political science, a literature on quality of governments produces surveys which typically show Greece amongst the lowest performers in the European Union. In recent times, however, Greece has shown important progress in government-to-citizen public services and the use of e-government. We think especially of the responses during the COVID-19 crisis, where e-government has circumvented traditional mechanisms and performed to an exceptionally high level. So can e-government tools repeat the success for government to business public services? And how is Greece doing in these respects? Today's seminar presentation draws on a research project funded by the Hellenic Observatory here at the LSE, and the research findings are available for downloading from the Hellenic Observatory web pages. For the Greece paper, it's the Greece paper 168, where you can find the full research outlined. So the three of the authors are present with us today to present their findings. And let me say that I found the research innovative, high quality, and highly relevant to discussions in Greece today concerning reform. So let me introduce our speakers in the order that they'll be presenting to us. Diomidis Spinellis is Professor of Software Engineering in the Department of Management, Science and Technology, heading the Business Analytics Laboratory at the Athens University of Economics and Business in Greece. And he is Professor of Software Analytics in the Department of Software Technology at the Delft University of Technology. His research interests include software engineering, IT security, and computing systems. He has written 2 award-winning, widely translated books, Code Reading and Code Quality, The Open Source Perspective, and has published more than 300 technical papers in journals and refereed conference proceedings, which have received more than 10,500 citations. As an academic, let me say, that's pretty good. That's British understatement. Our second speaker, Fay Makantasi, is a research director at diaNEOsis, the think tank in Greece. She teaches macroeconomic theory and game theory at the Athens University of Economics and Business. She completed her PhD thesis on a game theoretic approach for international trade at the Athens University of Economics and Business. As a postdoctoral fellow, she's focused on public sector reform in Greece, the country's export performance, and the measurement of its human capital. She's been a researcher at the Hellenic Observatory here in London on intelligent modeling of e-government initiatives in Greece. Her research has been published in international journals, and she has presented her work in national and international conferences. Last but not least, George Xirogiannis is currently the Deputy Director General at CERF, the Hellenic Federation of Enterprises, and CEO at CERF's Research Institute. He is also a board member at Entersoft, and George has extensive professional experience in industrial policy, digital transformation, industrial investments, and international trade. He has also extensive management consulting experience in strategy and operations. His current academic research focuses on intelligent business modeling. His research has been published in international journals and conference proceedings. He has co-authored several books on modern entrepreneurship. They're all well placed to tell us their insights on this important topic. Before I pass over to our speakers, let me just mention that we invite you, the audience, to send us your comments using Twitter, and we suggest the hashtag LSE Greece. Let me also say that we are recording this seminar, and we hope to make that available as a podcast for downloading subsequently on the Hellenic Observatory's website here at the LSE and on the Hellenic Observatory's YouTube channel. As usual, there'll be plenty of time for questions, so we invite you to use, if you're watching via Zoom, use the Q&A facility at the bottom of your screens. Please send us your questions, giving your name and any affiliation, and please try to keep the questions short, as I will be endeavoring to read out the questions, and that can be challenging with the text moving around on my screen. If you're sending us questions, please tell us also where you're joining us from. It's always interesting to know that. So without further ado, let me pass to our three speakers. They will be speaking to us in turn, and then we'll proceed with the discussion afterwards. But to repeat, please send us your comments on Twitter and send us your questions using the Q&A facility at any time. So to get underway, let me pass to Professor Spinellis. Diomidis.
Hello from my side. Let me describe the project scope before we delve into the description of the maturity analysis and the results. The research team has already introduced, so let us go to the next slide to see what the project objectives were. In the past, many initiatives in Greece failed to promote digital maturity. We'll see later on how Greece is scoring very low in various measures. One problem with them was that they were often revised, although they had a long-term plan of implementation period. When I was serving as Secretary General for Information Systems at the Greek Ministry of Finance, I found some excellent strategy reports in the drawers of my desk, but worryingly, they were 10 years old and still very relevant. What is happening now is that Greece successfully employs agile development methods to reduce the administrative burden, so bringing on new services, mainly through government to citizen front desk transaction. So what are these practices? They include requirement discovery and solution improvement through a collaborative effort of self-organizing teams, so not top-to-down management, and having always the customer close to the users, also featuring adaptive planning, evolutionary development, small cycles rather than long projects of 3 or 4 years with precise requirements, early delivery, and this is how early in the pandemic there were already tools that offered new services, and flexible responses to changes in requirements, capacity, and understanding of the problems to solve. So continuous small learning cycles, sometimes often in periods of a couple of weeks. The objective is to see what the e-government initiatives for government to business services will be. How can it improve the digital maturity in Greece, and thus aligning Greece with the European Union digital standards, which is challenging because those are also increasing every year. So Greece has to increase at a faster rate than other countries in order to improve its relative position. So the scope of this project was to look at the government to business initiatives in Greece, trying to look predictively to the future and trace with traceable reasoning. So give out ways to understand how our reasoning will, how our reasoning was derived. so as to identify gaps and compare various scenarios. What are we doing for that? We used the historical analysis augmented with a tool which is called fuzzy cognitive maps. It sounds quite difficult, but essentially it's a mental landscape of concept relations between various elements. Think of concepts, events, project resources, which can be used to compute the strength of impact of these elements. What happens if we increase one of these elements? What will its impact be? So by using these, we can have a multidimensional coupling of such Egov initiatives with the digital maturity assessment capabilities that we will describe immediately now, and create a strategy evaluation framework. The output of this should be and will be actionable policy recommendations to improve government to business effectiveness, precisely things that can be done in order to get better government to business services. Let me pass on to Fay, who will describe the digital maturity analysis.
Thank you, Diomidis. Good evening. Thank you, Kevin, for the previous extensive introduction. Let me make an important parenthesis before continuing the presentation. Expressing gratitude could sound typical, however, it is so important and essential for us, both as a team and in person, because this research wouldn't have been done without the support of Hellenic Observatory of LSE. So it gave us the opportunity to delve into depth in the issue of government in Greece by focusing on the business side and by using intelligent modeling. Okay, having said that, it's time to concentrate on the main findings of the overview of digital maturity in Greece, with focus on the government to business transaction. Comparing the two diagrams in this slide, we can see the evolution of DESI. DESI is the most well-known digital maturity indicator, stand for Digital Economy and Society Index. It obviously reveals the extremely low digital maturity of Greece in all pillars of DESI. DESI has 5 pillars, namely the connectivity, the human capital, the use of internet, the integration of digital technologies, and digital public services. And despite the increase in the overall score, Greece permanently ranks at the last 2 positions in the EU, along with Bulgaria and Romania, indicating somehow mediocre improvement compared to EU. And but the digital gap in Egov remains significant, although it follows a convergent trend. In the next slide, please, George. Thank you. Also, digital maturity index developed by SEV and Deloitte offers a comprehensive view of digital evolution in Greece versus EU. Actually, it interrelates KPIs from several other knowledge sources, including DESI, World Economic Forum, Eurostat, etc., and compares its KPI with other best practices available in the EU. A comprehensive overview of digital maturity in Greece, as well as a direct comparison to EU best practices, is presented in these slides. We can see that Greece traditionally lacks digital maturity in all dimensions, as recorded in many KPIs in digital maturity index. Some moderate scores are traditionally achieved in digital skills, in digital business maturity, and society digital maturity. However, most indicators lag EU average scores. In the next slide, we can see one of the 2 key digital maturity categories, which is Egov digital maturity, and the other one is the regulatory environment. As for the Egov digital maturity, Greece is underperforming, both in penetration, we can see the vertical axis, and in digitalization in the horizontal axis, with a marginal improvement in both dimensions since 2017, despite the number of the key G2B projects designed since 2017, Egov remained stagnated, mainly due to the absence of significant enablers that would allow increased levels of Egov interoperability. In the next slide, let me make two discrete comparisons. When compared to the poor performance of the past, Egov, without a shadow of a doubt, Egov initiatives improve G2B services. When compared to the EU countries, they seem to have little impact on G2B services. So various indicators shows that the regulatory maturity for digital operation stagnates. Deep dives into KPIs indicate that the new regulations often patch existing legislations and fail to adopt the new ICT standards applied in many EU countries. Also, regulatory complexity in digital services also increases by the unclear legal and regulatory framework and the delays in secondary legislation. Egov service utilization remains low, mainly due to the large number of G2B transactions, lacking a single point of entry and interoperability between registries. And access to G2B services is complex, with few digital documents, reduced transparency and accountability. You can see in parentheses the score of our country. And last but not least, the usability gradually converges with the EU standards. Let me conclude by adding a couple of words about e-government projects. Over the time, the Greek e-gov strategy was fragmentary, as Diomidis previously said, and had a short time horizon and was guided by the pursuit of immediate political benefits. Let me remind you that in the early 2010s, Greece was entering to the long period of the economic crisis without a strong digital infrastructure. And the country's inclusion in the three memoranda has stimulated political interest in upgrading the country's digital infrastructure. It works somehow like counterweight to physical austerity. However, the results in practice were scarce. In recent years, there has been a significant resurgence of activity, which can be attributed in part to the change of government and in part to the crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic. On the one side, the competent ministry has been reestablished and a goal has been set for Greece is to acquire a quote-unquote digital by default character by 2023. On the other hand, there is a very promising change of mindset in the eGov strategy through the design of implementation of a series of short-term projects to achieve quote-unquote quick wins and of course the simplification of all necessary procedures of a service before its digitalization. And the legal framework of public works and procurement improves gradually. There is a recent law which revises the previous one by 2016. This law has simplified and reformed the regulatory framework for public procurement. But nonetheless, it needs to be supported in practice through several dimensions. By speeding up, for example, the procedures for the award and execution of public contracts, by reducing bureaucratic obstacles and the complexity of public procurement procedures, etc. Let me now, I think my time has passed. Let me, George, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Fay and Diomidis. Before presenting the tool we used to model digital maturity, let me emphasize once again that Greece today experiences far better digital services than the recent past. And this is something we should emphasize because it is a very strong point for the Greek government and the Greek citizens. However, now let's shift to research and let's discuss not about politics, but how we can model political decisions. And this is what I will talk about in the next slides. In order to set up an intelligent X-ray, we used fuzzy cognitive maps, which combine fuzzy logic and neural networks, as Diomidis mentioned in the beginning. And FCMs model the knowledge or behavior of complex systems in fuzzy neural maps. Having said that, FCMs do not provide extensive numerical calculations, but they provide executive level reasoning. So don't expect actual numbers rather than directions or guidelines. In order to set up this intelligent X-ray, we followed some steps to migrate strategy to neural maps. The first step is to assign KPIs from the historic analysis to the e-government strategy. So we selected several KPIs of how to measure the impact of the e-government strategy on G2B services. And we migrated from an e-government hierarchy to a hierarchy of KPIs. The second step is to migrate the KPIs to fuzzy structures and identify feedback loops. That's the strength of this tool. You can have as many feedback loops in the neural map as you like, which provides realistic responses to what-if scenarios. And then we deployed the actual FCMs, the fuzzy maps. We utilized around 60 concepts, grouped around 7 maps and 4 decision levels. You can see a sample of those maps in level 4. That's the deepest part of the hierarchy, and level 3. And the way they propagate up to the first level. Of course, this is a sample. We cannot put all the maps and the FCMs into a single slide, but just to get an indication of how the neural hierarchies work. After that, we engaged into extensive scenario building. Scenarios reason for what-if questions. What will change, or what will the impact be if we change something in one KPI or more than one KPIs? And we can simulate different implementation tactics in terms of the strategy. We can simulate a big bang approach. Everything happens at once, if that was the case, or a successive rollout, a step-by-step approach in implementing the strategy, or even ad hoc approach. We isolate a part of the strategy and we deep dive into that and see what happens. And the actual results reason for the impact of each change to the concepts, also known as KPIs. So we have run many scenarios. I will shortly present some of them to get a feeling of what this tool can provide to back up realistic policy recommendations. The base scenario is more or less what happens in Greece in the last a couple of years, what effectively happens in Greece in the last couple of years, which is emphasis on front desk applications, to simplify many G2B transactions and reduce the administrative burden. So the what if question is, how far can this approach improve e-government maturity in terms of international KPIs, not in terms of the past, but in terms of international KPIs. Of course, in terms of transaction efficiency, the evidence is there. We experience it every day on a daily basis. But this approach doesn't seem to couple ICT with operational simplifications effectively. Having said that, ICT, even existing ICT, does not seem to deliver its full scope, regardless of the volume of investments. Therefore, investments is not the problem in this scenario. It's how far they can increase e-government maturity. Sorry, and with this scenario, e-government maturity seems to improve in a medium range, positively medium range. Also, this scenario indicates that front office applications may impact greatly on the G2C transactions. However, G2B services is a totally different thing. We also run some intermediate scenarios. We supplemented the base scenario with increased interoperability or increased operational effectiveness or regulatory simplifications. Those are three distinct scenarios, just to get a feeling of what will happen if we isolate components of the strategy. In all those three scenarios, the tool presents reasoning that investments will actually reduce because of the operational effectiveness behind the ICT. And we probably will experience a negatively medium reduction of investments versus base scenario. Of course, ICT efficiency will also increase from a positively medium to a positively high impact because they run on simplified processes. However, the overall impact on e-government maturity will be quite limited with all those three scenarios. This loosely proves the point that e-government should not digitize existing bureaucracy, but first simplify processes and then implement applications and systems. We also run another scenario. We put all those moderate changes together to couple with the base scenario. So on top of front desk applications and the simplified transactions, we asked the tool to reason on moderate changes in operations, interoperability, or regulations. So this scenario essentially produces a balanced coupling of front desk ICT with several back office improvements, not major improvements, but moderate improvements. And we experienced some interesting results. The overall government maturity moves from a medium impact to a high impact. Okay. Also, the administrative burden is reduced significantly, almost half versus the base scenario. And of course, the ICT investments are also reduced significantly versus the base scenario. Essentially, this scenario indicates that moderate operational investments can support a much higher e-government improvement, even with less ICT investments. The last scenario I would like to share with you is, let's say, the ideal scenario. Okay, which strategy mix will be the one that will maximize e-government maturity? That was a big bang, let's say, scenario. We asked the tool to provide us a response, assuming that we want to achieve maximum e-government maturity all at once. So in order to utilize the full power of doing business digitally, the tool indicates that the government must shift focus from quick wins on front desk transactions to a comprehensive process simplifications. That is, have a mix equally strong objectives on process simplifications, regulatory reforms, and setup of applications and new ICT. That scenario provided the highest score in the overall e-government maturity, almost topped on that indicator. Also, that scenario provided an increased channel and operational efficiency with a very high impact on that. A radical reduction of administrative burden, which moves down to almost very, very low administrative burden, or a very, very high change compared to the base scenario. And of course, reduced ICT investments. So if we summarize all those findings, we could say that front desk applications definitely improve many transactions. That is for sure. It is a great start, okay? But in the medium to long term, they can only lead to a positively medium government maturity. They cannot support a strong change in the medium or long term. And the reason is pretty simple. With or without the intelligent X-ray, front desk applications do not re-engineer in depth any back office bureaucracy or redundant approvals or functional silos or interoperability constraints. They simplify access to services, but not what takes place behind this front office application. So an updated mix, an updated strategy mix should set the process efficiency, interoperability, regulatory simplifications, as well as front office delivery as equally important objectives. This is what the tool indicated as the, let's say, the best way to move forward in the medium to long term. And this scenario, under this scenario, ICT will deliver its full potential, even with less investments, even with moderate investments, because the combination of all those of this strategy will improve the government maturity significantly. Having said that, we utilized indicators from 2019 and 2020. We concluded the research paper in mid-2021. Since then, there are several new indicators published, and we would like to see whether those findings comply with the new indicators and if the tool more or less have enough predictive capabilities. Yesterday, SEV published the new Digital Maturity Index for 2021. I have isolated two sections of this index, then policy and regulations and the public sector. We can see that in policies and regulations, Greece has improved its position since last year. However, in terms of public sector digital services, ranking remains quite low. This can seem strange to a citizen living in Greece, given the vast re-engineering and plenty of front office applications now available, including mobile apps, including a very successful COVID program, COVID and vaccination program, which has received extensive Apologize for that. Very good reviews, extensive reviews of how well it has operated over the last a couple of years. If we deep dive into that and have in mind the reasoning of the tool, let's deep dive and assess some indicators. I have isolated a couple of them just to give you an idea. Of course, we are still revising those indicators, and we'll get back to you shortly. The number of online services in Greece right now is about 1,300. Okay, that's the number of online services offered by countries around EU average. Okay, so one could easily argue that in terms of online services, Greece ranks about the EU average. However, in those median countries, 1,300 services account more or less of 90% of government services. In Greece, the same number accounts for about 55% of services. This is EU information, public information. We just pick the number and show the numbers to you. Similarly, the number of pre-filled forms in Greece is around 35% versus 70% in median EU countries. And those results come from the same number of online services, meaning that we may have to implement many more online services in order to reach EU benchmarks, while other countries have followed a rather different approach. First, the simplified processes, simplified the transactions, and improved interoperability in order to reduce the number of services that have to be implemented. This loosely proves our point that process simplification and operational simplification will result into lower ICT investments. So that's the results of the scenarios of our tool. And Diomidis, if you could present to us the policy recommendations overview.
Certainly. Thank you. So as George said, interoperability remains key to efficient government-to-business digital services. What has happened is that over the past 2 decades at least, many large digital systems have been implemented, but they were built as isolated silos rather than systems that were talking to each other. And thereby a lot of opportunity was lost. If the data in those systems can start working in an interoperable way, considerable benefits can be gained. As a next step, a comprehensive strategy should mix additional elements. First of all, the administrative burden reduction, organizational efficiency, so changes on how procedures are implemented. Let me give you 2 examples. Quite recently, a decision was made that arrears up to 100 euros to EFCA, the Social Security Service, would not be counted when requiring the issuance of a document that says that somebody is okay regarding their obligations towards the Social Security. This is a very simple change, but has profound results in the level of citizens, the level of service citizens receive, without any large implementation changes in the systems that are underneath. As another example, consider the issuance of consider how again in the Department of Social Security, benefits that were to be given are in many cases late by many years, because the regulations are extremely complex and past departments were merged only by name without actually simplifying the legislation that is behind them. So this makes it's very difficult to digitize them and offer good high-level services to the citizens. We also point to front desk digitalization as another equally important objective. And we think that there should be considerable effort put into migration planning and change management. Often in the past, nobody thought about migration or change management, or they were downplayed. And this has resulted in systems that were not used as they should have been. We have seen a counterexample during the pandemic, where this has brought increased urgency into how services are deployed and implemented. And many resistance that they used to be there was considerably reduced due to the needs of the pandemic. This is not a welcome, having a pandemic force change is not a welcome phenomenon, but we see that having effective change management ways can increase the adoption and the implementation of digital services. So planning for it without a pandemic will be an even better policy.
So Kevin, before giving back the floor to you, let me say once again that this is a research exercise. The objective is to see how an intelligent tool can model political decisions. And our intention is to see how easy or not such intelligent tools can be utilized in real life politics. Therefore, that's the key objective. Let's keep that in mind and also consider the intelligent recommendations of the tool in real life applications. Thank you. So the floor is back to you, Kevin.
Thank you to each of you very much indeed. This is highly topical research. I have some questions I'd like to put to you, but I'm going to, first of all, give a question that has come in from one of our participants, and this is Dr. Orestis Stylianiadis, a business consultant in Athens, and he asks the following: how did you arrive at the 60 selected concepts? Can you give some examples of such concepts? And what is the sensitivity of the model to the number of selected concepts? So perhaps just in terms of the methodology, you could clarify this. I don't know who wants to speak to that. Is that you, George?
Yes, I will take this one. First, we selected KPIs from historical analysis. Historical analysis and international databases and international KPIs is the source of the KPIs we utilized in this project. We utilized 60 out of 200 of them. Okay, just to give indication of how the tool can operate. Of course, there is room for improvement. Sensitivity is quite low, actually, because we focus on G2B transactions rather than a full-scale e-government strategy. We feel quite comfortable with those 60 indicators. Just to give you an idea, for the same strategy components, European Union uses about 14 or 15 indicators. Therefore, we outperform existing databases, so we're quite confident of the result. But once again, this is a research exercise to see how well this tool can operate in real life politics.
Okay, good. I don't know whether Fay or Diomidis wish to add anything to that. Shall we move on? Okay, let's move on. So, as your chair, I should confess that I'm a political scientist and I'm not an IT specialist, I'm afraid, although I can see that we have colleagues joining us who are. But indulge me for a moment. Perhaps I could ask questions that occurred to me from my particular disciplinary perspective, and this may be asking you to step outside your own immediate area of expertise. But I wonder, how e-government might help to overcome some of the embedded problems of and constraints in public administration in Greece. But it's the back office bureaucracy that you've referred to. We have well-established literatures which refer to the barriers caused by cultural norms and habits within public administration in Greece, the excessive formalism and legalism, but you refer to the need for regulatory simplification, a weak problem-solving capacity or culture, and you refer to change management. So all of your objective evidence very clearly indicates the gains to be had from an expansion of e-government. But I guess the embedded subjective cultural barriers that have long existed within public administration may actually prevent them being realized. So if you were talking to the Prime Minister, how would you advise that e-government might help overcome these ingrained traditional cultural attitudes? Who wishes to take that?
Let me start and then pass
Please.
the floor to the other two colleagues. It's a intriguing and difficult question. Our thesis in a previous study was that you cannot have e-government without government, proper government. And this is continues to be true. The best I can say is that by trying to move and increase e-government, increases the pressure to solve the other problems, because it's the only way you can do it. So it's not so much that the government will directly solve these problems, but the need, the imperative to move towards an increased e-government will require additional measures to be made on the other fronts in order to implement successful e-government services. That's sadly the best I can say. It would have been nice to say that the e-government is a magic stick that you can wield and reduce bureaucracy and formalism and provide better matching of levers used in various institutions, but it's not like that.
Thank you. It is, though, a big ask, isn't it, to say that government has to change itself before it can make the best use of e-government tools. I suppose what prompted my query was that, of course, some years ago, when the government in Greece introduced new transparent methods for online selections on the award of contracts, etc., this was proclaimed as a means of overcoming some of the problems of rigidity, formalism, even corruption within public administration. Faye, would you like to comment on this?
Yes, thank you, Kevin. I'm thinking that Greece has 5 at least important factors, important problems that like mythical dragons keep growth, employment and prosperity captive. These are, of course, overregulation and bad legislation, which are the source of red tape in the public sector, and e-governments could help to alleviate this mythical dragon. One major problem is also the dysfunctional tax system. Let me stress your attention that the tax evasion in Greece, as the diaNEOsis research points out, is between 6 to 9% of GDP. In other words, 60 billions. And moreover, the 8% of taxpayers pays the 70% of natural person taxes. So I strongly believe that digitalization could help alleviate the dysfunctionalities in the tax system. Also, we know that another drawback, another mythical dragon is the slow justice procedures.
Yes.
For example, for a business court case to get resolved in Greece, it takes above 1,500 days on average. So I believe that all the new technologies and the digitalization could alleviate this problem too. And let me add that amidst these hardships, the economic crisis, the pandemic crisis, and of course our Oriental thought blessed neighbor, we have a last chance to change our productive model towards more employment efficiency, competitiveness, towards more governance, towards more extroversion and innovation and social cohesion, of course. And this is our last chance to transform our economy, making the best use of out of 72 billions of the European Recovery and Resilience Facility.
Very good, thank you.
So if I can add here, you mentioned that it's not reasonable to expect us to have government before implementing government. I would say that the two can go hand in hand, one pushing the other. As an example, I've seen in departments that are implementing successful e-government initiatives that some officials stop being paper-pushing bureaucrats and become successful project managers. They operate under the same legislative framework and the same regulations as their colleagues in another department, but due to the need to utilize e-government, they transform their way of thinking and operations even within the same regulatory framework.
Thank you. That is,
Even, if I may, coming back to your original question, what would we say to the Prime Minister? Definitely, from my point of view, George would say, keep up the good work and keep on reforming the public sector. There is a huge reform program in place. We experience several simplifications on a daily basis. Definitely, ICT is not the magic stick, but it is one way to expedite reforms and make our lives easier. As you mentioned in your introduction, Greece and Greek citizens experience such changes on a daily basis. This is a very good start, but we have to get involved into more tricky, let's say, problems within the public administration.
yes, I take that point, but as I was listening and reading your paper, which I recommend to everyone watching, I took your argument to be that so far the Greek government has achieved the easy wins, as it were, and improving services, e-government services for business is actually more challenging. George, you showed the graphs which come from yesterday. We like to be topical and up to the minute, but you gave us the SEV report, the employers report from yesterday, which showed that, if I understood correctly, the public sector was actually doing worse than in 2020 in comparison to the European Union. So how do you interpret those findings? And with that structure, what you were saying to the Prime Minister?
We have had a very long discussion today for the same topic. There is one point of view, which is the most important point of view, is how citizens experience change on a daily basis. So in comparison to the poor past of Greece, e-government has exceeded expectations. I say that out loud just to be
Yes.
very clear.
But your research is telling us that you're now competing with Bulgaria.
True. So in comparison to the past, everything is great. But in comparison to other EU countries who have to move faster, okay? So it's not a matter of how good we are in comparison to the past, but we have to increase the pace, we have to move faster, because other European countries also improve their digital maturity. It's not, we don't run this race on our own, okay? We are part of the European Union, and as European citizens, we would like to have, let's say, state-of-the-art digital services, regardless of the country we live. So identify best practices from other countries and implement that in Greece. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, good, thank you. Let me pass through the questions which have come in from those watching, and let me go immediately to my colleague, Professor Chrysanthi Avgerou, here at the LSE, Department of Management, and she asks, does the tool suggest priority areas for regulation simplification and interoperability?
The simple question is yes.
Very good.
We can isolate the strategy components and reason on those components either on an isolated scale or a big bang theory, a top-down, bottom-up, any way we like. The tool is quite flexible in providing such short or long answers.
Very good. And we have a question from an LSE alumnus in Cyprus, George Stavroulidis, from Cyprus, saying that Cyprus is also bottom of the league. I think he's been slightly modest. I looked at your graphs and saw that Cyprus was not quite at the bottom of the league. But it sounds like most problems as far as bureaucracy is concerned are common, even if a little milder. And he suggests maybe you can share your experiences with Cypriot colleagues and officials. Perhaps we could expand that and say that are you working with colleagues in other countries facing these kind of problems and trying to assess the potential of e-government for government to business services? Is this something which you're aware of research in other contexts which are more or less giving similar messages? Diomidis.
An example regarding legislation. I've always been puzzled of how legislation is very difficult to read. It's not codified. And as a software engineer, I look at the counterexample of how code is always written in a way that's readable, maintainable. And increasingly, we see that the same tools and methods that are used for programming can be used for legislating. This would mean that instead of drafting a law saying that paragraph 6C of law 32551 has this sentence added to the end of it, the legislators work directly on the final codified version of the law, and then the changes are derived automatically from what the final version is. So citizens and legislators always look at the final codified version, and if for some legal reasons a list of changes is required, this can be derived automatically from those changes. The procedures currently used are those that were required maybe 50 years ago when the official gazette was typeset letter by letter on lead plates and printed. This is no longer a case of technology. So I'm seeing such initiatives in France and Canada, and and I've been trying to promote them in Greece, and they're relevant across many countries. Many countries still, most countries still legislating this way, as laws that get printed on lead plates rather than the modern way that technology allows us to do.
Thank you. And do you think that this codification with e-government could overcome some of the problems that have been in Greece for many, many years of helping legislation to become more coherent? In other words, avoiding the situation where law X at the last minute suddenly includes a provision which is really concerned with something totally different, but has been a clause has been inserted in Parliament at the last minute for some extraneous political reason, and the legislation is therefore containing quite a salad of different components, which is not obvious from the actual title of the legislation. So do you think there's a role to play in tackling those problems?
It will be coherent because everything will be, in the end, available in the codified form. The problem that you are mentioning is still a procedural problem that has to do with how Parliament works, that one cannot insert a small change into to become law to fix a particular problem. This is, again, we can draw lessons from information technology, the agile way of working, rather than come up with a big list of changes that is what the new law is. One has the right to make small incremental changes at very frequent intervals. But this is bigger than e-government. It's the way we legislate and the way the Parliament works.
Very well put. Another question, Michael Roussos, who is a UK government economist in London, and he also says thank you to the speakers for your insightful presentation. Question, do you plan on working with the Greek government to communicate your findings and/or discuss how to apply your research exercise in further policy areas? In short, is the Greek government listening to you? Fay, do you want to?
Yeah. Actually, this is one of the roles of diaNEOsis, in which
Indeed.
I'm a research director. Its goal is to stimulate public debate and by providing well-substantiated data and to formulate proposals that will solve the critical institutional, financial, and social problems. In other words, we want to modernize Greece, and we want to influence in the right direction the public debate, and to influence the Greek government in our research findings, our research activities, which are mostly outsourced to teams of high-tier Greek and international experts, end up in policy recommendations. So likewise, this research paper, we have the opportunity that the Hellenic Observatory of LSE gave us the opportunity to conduct this research, ends up in many research findings that we would like to communicate in all dimensions. So the next steps of some of our next steps is to communicate all these research findings to the government.
and you have a good record of doing so in other areas, certainly. But do you think the government is receptive, is listening to this kind of thing? George has emphasized very correctly that the Greek government has made major strides in terms of government to citizen services, but but those are relatively easy wins with many political advantages. Is government listening to business? Is business promoting this agenda adequately to government? George?
Yes, definitely. I think we have a very open and very honest collaboration with the government. They fully understand the digital agenda and the opportunities for Greek companies and Greek economy and the Greek citizens. Of course, nothing can happen overnight. We totally understand that. But so far, we have seen a very concrete action plan. Okay, we may discuss on the details, and we may have some different approach of how to implement this agenda, but the agenda is there. We fully support it, and especially the competent ministry and the competent minister is also a very IT literate guy, and he fully understands how high-tech applications can change the public sector, reduce costs, reduce bureaucracy. I would say that we are in the middle of a change. Okay, there are several reforms in place. I think honestly that the KPIs in next year or will be much better than today, and we would like to push the government to expedite reforms because they are in the right directions. This is regardless of minor or secondary, let's say, discussions of how to implement the strategy. The direction is there, and it is correct.
Okay. If you think of this from the point of view of business enterprises themselves, big, small, medium, would your expectation be that from the point of view of a firm receiving more efficient services, that e-government would produce gains according to would produce gains which would vary by the type of firm? I have in mind here that so many enterprises in Greece are micro in size, and many are family or traditional enterprises, etc. And I wonder whether they are able to fully seize the opportunities from e-governments and technology. So whether the gains are obvious for a firm in SEV, less obvious for a small micro enterprise in a remote part of Greece. Is that an aspect in terms of differential gains from the point of view of companies and enterprises?
Let me take that question, Diomidis, and let me give you a couple of indicators outside this research. Last year, we did a major primary research on enterprises, asking various questions regarding digital change. It is very good to see that 90% of them, including SMEs or very small enterprises, understand the benefits of digital change, either within the enterprise or within the government or the interactions in between. So it's 90. This is a very huge number, the largest number we have experienced in Greece for many years. Fortunately, there are the tools, the financial tools to support this change, either the Recovery and Resilience Fund or NSRF or state aid programs are in place that can help SMEs change the digital landscape.
Okay. Diomidis, did you want to add something?
Yes, I think it more applies to small enterprises than large ones. because large ones have the capacity to absorb the inefficiencies of the lack of governance, whereas small ones don't have that luxury. They have to deal directly or via their accountant with the state, and also the accountant is something that's not widely appreciated. These act as in-betweens and have the technical knowledge to access many government services, even if the company's proprietors can't do that.
Good, thank you. We have another question from Theodoros Hadjipandelis. He's a professor of political science. Welcome, another political scientist. But I'm afraid it's a question which will expand the perspective again. He asks, what about the actions of political parties and public sector unions concerning e-government? So essentially, how big a constraint are the attitudes of public sector unions to the full realization of e-government benefits for business, do you think? Who'd like to take that? Fay?
I think that that the professor points out a major theme, and which can blow up the whole reforming spirit.
Mm.
So both the short electoral cycle and the reactions by the unions and by the citizens can actually jeopardize all the reforms. Can jeopardize the program, the so-called Greece 2.0, which is the translation of
Yes.
the report of Pissaridis committee about the Greek economy.
Yes. Okay, good. Thank you. We're coming to the end. I wonder if any of you, just in 1 or 2 minutes, would like to add any final messages to those watching in terms of the findings of your research or the implications. Would you like to add any additional message?
We heard about the recovery fund, which is indeed an opportunity.
Indeed.
What we have not, what we need to also realize is that it is a risk. Traditionally, funding from external sources in Greece promotes the implementation of large projects due to conditionalities, which is exactly the opposite of the agile way of working that has brought results in the past 2 years. Furthermore, such funding promotes the building of systems, whereas in software and information systems, we know that more than 80% of the cost of a system comes after its implementation in maintenance and successive improvements. So we need to think hard about how to bridge this both funding gap and implementation gap between best practices and the type of planning that's brought forward by the Recovery Fund.
Thank you for that. I apologize. I've just seen that we have 2 more questions, and I missed them on my screen. So I'm reading them for the first time. Lampros Kafidis says, it seems to me that the major issue lies more on the quality of legislation rather than implementing IT systems on them. Is there a specific IT tool, application, or ongoing project that can cope with the simplification and coding of the legal framework and drafting process? Does the National Process Registry of the Law 4727/2020 have any connection in that context? I imagine you might understand the question better than I do. George.
Yes, well, I'm not familiar with any such IT tool. However, coming back to the core of this question, regulatory simplification is key to simplifying G2B services. Whether we use some software or we employ experienced legal staff to do the job, we should focus on that. That's for sure. But I'm not familiar with any such IT system.
Okay.
There is a tool called codico.gr. I will paste it. It's a kodiko.gr that attempts to automatically codify legislation. And it's an interesting attempt. It works reasonably well. I don't think it's at a level of quality where one can use it to make legal decisions, but at least it can inform citizens on the laws that are currently in effect. Regarding the registry of procedures, I would have liked first to simplify things iteratively and rather than create a registry of things that need to be changed and abolished.
That's very helpful. Thank you. I'm afraid we are coming to the end of the session, and for those who've sent in questions which we haven't had time to get to, I apologize for that. But let me thank each of our speakers. I'm very pleased that the Hellenic Observatory has been able to support this very timely and innovative research. I think on your screens, you can see references here to how you can download the research from the Hellenic Observatory web pages, and you can see the Greece paper. It's number 168, which we have published here at the Hellenic Observatory. So let me thank everyone for joining, and let me just finish by emphasizing our next seminar, which will be which is on your screen now, Tuesday, the 1st of March, at 6 o'clock UK time, 8 p.m. in Greece, deciphering the formulation of Greek economic diplomacy towards the Western Balkans. So a very different topic, but we look forward to learning about that research as well. And you can get full information about all of our events from the Hellenic Observatory web pages. But again, to close, let me thank each of our speakers, and I found the research very interesting indeed. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.